Okay. We want to go into the Q&As, or do we want to go into this whole... I don't know if we want to get into this thing, this story right here. I don't know if y'all can see me highlighting it.
No.
This one. I don't know if we... Yeah, that one. I don't know if we want to get into that or not. Because that's more a PC versus Mac thing, but it does have open source implications. Or do we want to just go into Q&A?
What do you mean open source? In the question, what do you mean open source tends to not focus on apps?
Well, it's not that they don't focus on apps. It's that what that video's showing is a 4-year-old playing with an iPad, and it's all the education apps. You know, like my letters, my numbers, my son, all of that stuff. As far as I know, these types of apps are deceptively missing from other marketplaces. In the same way in the desktop environment, they don't so much make it into Linux or Mac as they do into Windows.
G-Compras.
There's TextPaint.
Okay. So,
and then,
G-Compras is a whole suite of educational apps.
But that's Linux.
Yeah.
That I'm talking about for Android.
Oh, well, I thought you said desktop.
Well, it's like, here's my concern with this. Schools take a look at the various platforms right now, and really the only one that appeals to them is iOS, because iOS has these educational games and toys and so on and yada yada and so forth. Why that doesn't specifically appeal to the general user base of Android or BlackBerry or... I don't know about Windows yet, but WebOS and yada yada and so forth, because these are more power users, most of which are teenagers or adults. They're past the red, blue, yellow phase of their life, and really, I thought. But I still think ignoring those markets is a really bad idea on any platform, because the moment a platform starts to be favored for that, at some point one of these platforms is going to become dominant, it's going to become preferred, and we're going to turn the whole educational system over to it. And the last thing I want is for that to be any... Well, no, but it's honestly, if we let the divergence get too big here, especially in educational apps, it's going to happen. The last thing I want is when we finally start rehashing the education system and going, okay, let's get rid of these 50 pounds of textbooks and let people just carry their 5-pound link device around and they can get through their primary school education with that, and yada yada. The last thing I want is to just trade one platform monopoly for another platform monopoly. This stuff needs to be neutral. It needs to be platform agnostic, so that when that transition happens, the educational system's set free rather than just transferred from one cage to another. And I'm a little afraid that isn't happening quite like we'd like it to. I didn't know if y'all had any thoughts on that one way or the other. I mean, you have kids, Jordan. Are there really any apps? Do you have any Android devices?
I have no Android devices. I had the one, I bought it, I reviewed it, it was horrible, I took it back.
Yeah. By the way, he's not saying Android size, he's saying cheapy tablet piece of crap running, what was it, 1.6 or whatever?
It was actually running 2.1. Oh. It was just doing it very, very badly.
Very, very badly.
I'm looking at the Android market on their website, and they don't have an educational category, which is really odd.
No, they don't. This category is being completely ignored, Android side, and I know why. Because
sort of fits that.
Because Android is focused at more power users like us, and I'm like, yes, that's the core user base for Android, but you have kids. I hope to have kids someday. And so I'm like, and I'd love nothing more than to go, here, Junior, go play with this in the corner while Daddy gets some work done. You know, it's like...
I'll admit, recently I was alone at home with my son, and, you know, he's got books and everything, but I I don't know, the bookstore in the other room or something like that. So I just pulled out my phone.
Uh-huh.
I very quickly found an app for him on, of course, iOS, and was able to let him, like, flashcards or something.
Right.
And he was endlessly entertained.
And that's useful. And honestly, if you're going to go sit them with the digital babysitter, you'd rather sit them with the digital babysitter that's at least encouraging some neurons to grow.
And actually, I ended up putting him on with Pocket
There is no
Guide.
education system in the market. I'm looking on my phone, and typing in education doesn't exactly.
You're not finding really anything. And now I'm like,
I'm finding education apps. There's education, all these. There's a bunch of education apps I'm finding from typing education.
right.
But I'm also finding sex terms 500, sexual education, a bunch of those kind of apps.
Yeah.
So, Family Guy puzzles, Ultimate Sims puzzle. There's no category for it. So even though there's actually a significant amount of education apps, I have a flashcard app on my phone.
Okay.
But if you search for just education, since there's no actual category for actual education apps, you're gonna find a lot of apps having to do with sex, South Park.
And then right there, that's a problem in and of itself. I'm not saying we shouldn't have sex ed or sex apps. I'm just saying, well, then again, I would argue if a 3 or 4-year-old finds that stuff, they're probably not going to have a clue what they're looking at. It's like, but still. But yeah. But it needs to be easier to find and better sorted. And
It really does. I'm really surprised on how, I like my phone a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the apps that I can find, but I'm just surprised on how hard it is to find the apps, considering Google is a search company and their whole, purpose is making things easy to find.
I'm honestly wondering on some of that, and this is not me trying to be nice to Google. I've done plenty of Google bashing throughout various videos. If you want the Google fanboy, that's Leo. But I'm wondering how much of that is Google can't do what they want to, or they're just dropping the ball on that. And I honestly don't know. I see no evidence one way or the other. But the reality is, regardless of whose fault it is, it's a problem right now. It is.
Well, I see that they're dropping the ball because there is alternative marketplaces that do have those features for Android.
Well, and say and that's one of the reasons I'm very annoyed that the carriers are starting to lock out the ability to run other marketplaces. Because,
So
like you said,
AT&T.
namely AT&T. But that's one of the big benefits of Android is that if Google's fucking it up, you go to another marketplace.
But it's really, it could be so much better. I would like to see apps sorted not just by education, but education by grade. I like to see, there is sorting in games, but I'd like to see even more than it has. I'd like to see you can't even sort based on popularity. It's ridiculous. I want to be able to sort based on popularity, downloads, comments.
As I understand it, popularity is supposed to come in the next version of the marketplace, so they do understand the need for popularity. But like you said, there's base categories missing at this point.
And a lot of these can be a lot of these already have the data for. They just don't let you sort it with that data.
Right. That's the thing. The analytics are there and the tags are there. It's the ability to do it. Which, you gotta... I'm wondering if this is something they're working in Gingerbread or Honeycomb, or if they don't realize that this is this annoying. And I haven't really heard a lot on this.
I think that they could be I think they could be a great education platform, Android can. It's gotta, I think that, I don't know if they do this, but I think that if someone's submitting an app to the Android market, and I'm going to start trying to develop, but as of now, I don't know if they do. I would like...
Did you lock up? Hello?
Category, age, all of that.
You locked up for a moment.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I don't know if they do this yet, because did you hear that part?
Yeah.
Okay, but I would like it if Google requires people to put information, not just a description of your app and upload it, because I don't know if they make you do this, but I would like it to put information like, category, as well as age group, restrictions, all of these different things, and they should enforce a little bit of that. I know that people.
Well, here's what I was honestly hoping would happen with Android, but unfortunately, thanks to the carriers effing this up, there's no real chance of this happening. But rather than Google, because the last thing I want is for Google to be the moderator of the Android world and dictate you must do this, you must do that. But for certain applications, like education ones is one of them, it's definitely a sign. This would be a service a lot of people would be willing to pay for. And that, say you create an app, and the whole point of the app is to be a marketplace for these specific applications, to sort, vet, and so on and so forth, in which, so the Android platform stays completely open, but people voluntarily, to appear to this niche demographic, submit their stuff over to these people and go through the things that need to be done, like education apps, things like that, because that's something that's only important for somebody who has kids, and that's the only person who needs that kind of vetting going on. An adult that can make their own decisions and doesn't need to sign or worry about it, doesn't care. It's like, because it's like, I know I sound like I'm saying, well, wait a minute, everything should work like the iOS marketplace. I'm like, no, I'm saying individual niche applications where that's appropriate, and then that's the service you're selling and or offering. You could fund it with buying the app, with a fee to have your things submitted and reviewed. It's all there's all kinds of ways that can make a bunch of money where it doesn't necessarily be a fee the end user pays, but solves the problem and does the thing and does all the stuff you're talking about. But the moment you start disabling the non-marketplace apps, you start creating problems with that, because now the only way that can really realistically work with the way the ecosystem's starting to shape is if you can get Google on board with delegating authority to an outside company, which I don't really ever see happening. Now, there might be a way to still get around this, in that if all this stuff gets built using HTML5, and that education.edu site, whatever, winds up being the filter and doing the thing, and you only show up there if yada and so forth. As much as I would love to say I think HTML5 full applications are just around the corner, the reality is we're not quite there yet.
And a lot of it might end up being in Flash applications, which would be an actual good thing for the Android.
Yeah, well, it's like
specifically the 2.2 and on devices.
If we're honest, right now a lot of that stuff is in Flash. it is. So yeah.
I agree with you with having separate markets, but I would still say that I would like Google to just ask developers, well, not ask, I would like them, in order to submit their app, to provide more information. I mean, it's already cheaper to be a developer there, and I don't think it's necessarily them moderating everything. They're just asking them to provide more information about their app.
And realistically, if Google got up and said, we've created a new meta tag for our marketplace, how many developers would not instantly jump on top of that? I mean, let's just be honest. It's like when there's here's the new meta tag for your web page. Really? You mean people can find this data now? Let me get that in there right now. It's like that really is the reaction, because they're like, wait, you just made it easier for me to give them this information instantly? Oh, I'm all for it. It's like, that really is the reality of that. I'm not being sarcastic or anything. I'm serious. The more,
I think it's a good idea.
The more of these tags we add, the better. And they should be entirely voluntary. Now, the reality is, if you want people to find your app and download it so that the ads that are in it are giving you money, or so that they're buying it, no matter what your business model is, the one common in all of them is, I want as many people as possible to find my app as efficiently as possible. So part of a developer's job is to take advantage of every little bit of meta tag data sorting yada yada that is offered in that marketplace.